Elon Musk had just settled into his luxurious first-class seat, a rare moment of comfort on one of his grueling business trips. The soft leather of the seat molded to his frame, and the hum of the plane's engines provided a momentary escape from the chaos of his entrepreneurial world. Yet, amidst the opulence, something caught his attention that would change the course of his journey in ways he could never have anticipated. Across the cabin, a soldier in uniform was standing, looking bewildered. His eyes darted between the economy seats, clearly uncomfortable with the tight quarters and the crowds. He wasn't complaining, but it was evident that the weight of his uniform, and his service, was a stark contrast to the luxuries of first class. Musk, ever attuned to the nuances of human behavior, noticed the soldier's subtle hesitation. It was a moment of quiet dignity, yet in his own way, it spoke volumes about sacrifice, honor, and the complexities of a life dedicated to service. Musk, known for his bold, often unpredictable decisions, couldn't help but feel a deep, unspoken connection to this man. Here was someone who had put their life on the line for a cause greater than themselves, someone who had experienced the raw and unglamorous realities of life. And yet, here they were, just like any other passenger, caught in the struggle of getting a decent seat. As Musk watched, a thought crossed his mind, an impulse to act on the feeling stirring within him. What if he did something surprising? What if he, the billionaire CEO, offered up his first-class seat for the soldier? Everyone would be shocked. But the question lingered in his mind. Why? What would happen next? Elon Musk reclined in his first-class seat, the plush fabric enveloping him in luxury. The cabin was a cocoon of comfort, with soft lighting casting a golden glow over the cabin's sleek, modern design. A glass of champagne sat delicately on the armrest, while his laptop displayed a never-ending stream of emails and business updates. It was a rare moment when Musk could simply sit back and enjoy the quiet hum of the aircraft, away from the relentless demands of his companies. But the moment of peace didn't last long. His attention was drawn to a conversation taking place near the galley. A soldier, clearly out of place in his crisp military uniform, was speaking to a stewardess. The soldier's voice, though steady, carried a note of discomfort. He explained that he had been booked in economy class, but the cramped seats and crowded cabin were making the journey almost unbearable. There was no bitterness in his words, only quiet resignation. He wasn't complaining, but it was obvious that the soldier, accustomed to the harsh realities of service, wasn't used to this kind of discomfort. Musk's eyes lingered on the soldier for a moment longer. The contrast was striking. In front of him, the soldier was a figure of humility, his uniform slightly worn, his boots scuffed from duty, his face carrying the quiet weariness of someone who had seen more than most could imagine. And then there was Musk, enveloped in the plush surroundings of first class, surrounded by luxury and privilege. It was a jarring juxtaposition. Musk could sense something within him stir. The thought struck him suddenly without warning, what if I give up my seat? He knew the gesture would shock everyone. The billionaire mogul, with his sprawling wealth and groundbreaking ventures, was about to make a move that would defy convention. But the more Musk thought about it, the more it seemed right. This soldier had given up more than Musk could ever truly understand. Maybe it was time for Musk to give up something too, something small but meaningful. He stood up abruptly, the decision made before he could second-guess it. "Excuse me, I have a seat in first class," Musk said, turning toward the stewardess. "Can you ask the soldier to join me there?" The stewardess blinked, momentarily stunned by the unusual request. She looked between Musk and the soldier, her expression a mix of disbelief and confusion. But Musk's determined gaze left no room for argument. The soldier, unaware of Musk's intention, continued to stand awkwardly in the economy section. When the stewardess approached him, explaining Musk's offer, the soldier looked almost as though he hadn't fully processed what was happening. It took him a moment, but the astonishment on his face was undeniable. There were murmurs from the surrounding passengers, some unsure of what to make of the situation, others glancing at Musk with admiration. As the soldier made his way toward first class, the cabin seemed to hold its breath. Everyone was watching. Some passengers exchanged whispers, others shook their heads in disbelief. This wasn't just an act of generosity, it was something more. Musk didn't just give up a seat. He was challenging the boundaries of what it meant to be kind, to make a difference. But what Musk didn't know was that this simple act would change his life, and the soldier's, forever. As the soldier settled into the plush first-class seat, he couldn't help but feel a pang of discomfort. The luxurious leather felt foreign under his fingers, the soft padding of the chair unfamiliar in a way that seemed almost wrong. He was used to the hard, unforgiving surfaces of military transports, the cramped spaces, and the constant hum of engines as he traveled from one deployment zone to the next. First class, with its excessive comfort, was not a world he had ever imagined being a part of. He looked around the cabin, his eyes lingering on the quiet elegance of the people sitting beside him. The stewardess had just brought him a glass of champagne, but he couldn't bring himself to sip it. It felt out of place, as though the drink itself was a symbol of a life he didn't belong to. He was used to simpler things: the taste of a cold can of water shared with fellow soldiers, the warm, gritty feeling of a fire camp after a long day. Musk had noticed the soldier's unease, his fidgeting in the chair. It wasn't just the discomfort of the seat. It was something deeper, something Musk understood instinctively. The soldier didn't feel worthy of this gesture. He was too used to the hardships of life to accept such a generous offer without question. A quiet conversation between the soldier and the stewardess caught Musk's attention. The soldier hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. "I appreciate it, but I don't want to trouble him," he said, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of conflict. "It's kind of him, but I'm fine in economy. I'm used to it. There's no need for such a grand gesture." Musk overheard the soldier's words and felt a pang of empathy. The soldier's reluctance wasn't about pride, it was about humility. He wasn't used to being treated this way. His life had been built around sacrifice, duty, and resilience. He had seen the harsh realities of war, the brutality of service, and the emotional toll of being away from loved ones for months or even years at a time. It had forged him into a man who didn't ask for help, who never expected more than what was necessary. Musk's heart softened. He stood up and made his way over to the soldier, whose face reflected a mix of gratitude and confusion. "I understand your hesitation," Musk began, his voice calm and genuine. "But please accept it. It's not about me, it's about the respect I have for what you do. You've given so much to this country. A little comfort for you is the least I can offer." The soldier's eyes flickered with surprise, and for a moment he didn't know how to respond. His instinct was to refuse, to decline the generosity because it felt like too much. But Musk's sincerity was undeniable. The man who had built an empire was standing before him, offering something so simple, so human, yet so profound. Musk smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I won't take no for an answer," he said with quiet determination. "It's just a seat, but maybe it'll remind you that there's kindness in this world. People who notice, people who care." The soldier took a long breath, his internal struggle visible. Finally he nodded, the weight of the gesture settling in his chest. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but filled with emotion. As the soldier relaxed into the first-class seat, his thoughts drifted back to the time he had spent overseas. He thought of the soldiers who never made it back, of the families left behind, of the quiet sacrifices no one ever saw. He thought of the long nights, the empty phone calls home, the distant voices of loved ones telling him they missed him. And here he was, sitting in this seat, a moment of peace he had never expected. Musk, watching from his own seat, began to reflect as well. Why had he done this? It wasn't just about the soldier. It was something deeper, something that connected them both. There was an unspoken bond between them, a shared understanding of what it meant to give everything for something bigger than oneself. What was it that had driven Musk to offer his seat? Was it compassion? Or was it the realization that sometimes the smallest gestures had the biggest impact? But that question would have to wait. For now, the soldier was still processing, still trying to comprehend why a billionaire, someone with the world at his feet, would make such a humble offer. And Musk, too, was left wondering if this act of kindness would be the beginning of something far greater than either of them could predict. As the flight continued, the soldier slowly settled deeper into the plush first-class seat. The unfamiliar comfort seemed almost suffocating to him, yet there was a strange sense of peace. He ran his fingers over the soft leather of the seat, his mind still racing with the sheer absurdity of what had just happened. How had he gone from being cramped in economy class, surrounded by fellow soldiers and civilians, to this moment of luxury? He couldn't understand it, but a part of him was grateful for this brief respite from the chaos of his life. The stewardess, who had witnessed the exchange between Musk and the soldier, returned to offer the soldier a blanket and a more comfortable pillow. She smiled warmly at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. It seemed to the soldier that the entire first-class section had shifted in energy, as if they were all participants in a moment larger than themselves. Everyone had seen the selfless gesture, and it had left an undeniable mark on the atmosphere. "Would you like something else, sir?" the stewardess asked politely, noticing his slight discomfort as he adjusted his position. The soldier nodded, but before he could speak, a voice from the row beside him broke through his thoughts. "Excuse me," said a man who appeared to be in his mid-40s, dressed in a well-tailored suit. His dark, graying hair was neatly combed back, and his sharp eyes conveyed a certain intensity. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation earlier. About what you've done for our country, I mean. I respect it a lot." The soldier glanced over, slightly taken aback. "I'm just doing my job," he replied, shrugging it off. "Of course," the man continued, "but not everyone has the courage to put their life on the line the way you have. And I respect that." There was a brief pause as the soldier hesitated. "It's not always about courage," he muttered. "It's about duty. Sometimes you just do what needs to be done." The man smiled faintly. "True. But there's more to it than that. You must know that, right?" Before the soldier could respond, another voice interjected from the seat behind them. "Sorry to interrupt," said a young woman in her mid-30s, her voice bright but with an air of seriousness. "I just have to say what happened back there with Musk. That was incredible. It's not every day you see a billionaire giving up his seat for someone. It's inspiring." The soldier looked up at her, unsure of how to respond. "Yeah, I guess it is." His voice trailed off, but there was a sense of discomfort in his words. Despite the appreciation, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't supposed to be here, that he didn't belong in such a lavish space. The woman, noticing his discomfort, tried to ease the situation. "I don't mean to pry, but do you happen to know Elon Musk personally? I mean, it's such an unusual thing for him to do." The soldier paused, his mind racing. "Do I know him?" The question caught him off guard. He looked back toward Musk, who was seated a few rows ahead, deeply engrossed in something on his tablet. For a fleeting second, a thought flashed in his mind. "Musk looks familiar." Suddenly, memories from the past began to surface, memories that had been buried for years. A brief but intense moment in a foreign country, an encounter that had changed the soldier's life in ways he could never have imagined. The soldier's breath caught in his throat as the memories came flooding back. He remembered a tense night in a remote base years ago when an anonymous benefactor had provided a critical piece of equipment, an experimental satellite communication device, that had kept their entire squad connected during a brutal mission. The mission was a success thanks to the device. But at the time, no one had known where it had come from, who had funded it, or why it had been delivered under such mysterious circumstances. Could it be? The soldier's thoughts raced as the pieces began to fall into place. He turned to the woman next to him, his voice barely a whisper. "I think I might know who he is." The woman's eyebrows arched. "You know Musk?" The soldier nodded slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. "Not directly, but I think he might have been the one who helped us all those years ago. That device we received, it was his company that sent it?" The realization hit him like a thunderclap. Musk, the man sitting just a few rows ahead of him, had unknowingly saved his life, and the lives of his entire squad. The soldier had never made the connection until now, but it all made sense. The innovative technology, the incredible foresight, the willingness to risk so much for a cause greater than himself. As the soldier absorbed the weight of this revelation, the events of the day seemed to grow even more surreal. Was this all coincidence, or was there something more at play? Had fate brought them together in this moment, or was there a deeper reason for their paths crossing again? Before the soldier could fully process the situation, Musk looked up from his tablet, catching his eye for a brief moment. Musk's lips curled into a subtle, knowing smile, as if he had sensed the soldier's realization. The soldier's heart skipped a beat. Did Musk know? Did he understand the full extent of his gesture and the impact it had on this man? As the soldier sat back in his seat, the flight continued, but the air around him seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. What had started as a simple, selfless act had spiraled into something far greater than anyone could have predicted. As the flight carried on, the atmosphere inside the first-class cabin had shifted. What had started as a quiet, uneventful journey now seemed filled with an undercurrent of something greater, a sense of connection, gratitude, and a shared recognition that something profound had occurred. The soldier, still overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness of Elon Musk, began to feel a stirring in his chest, a deep appreciation that went beyond the luxury of the seat he now occupied. He gazed out the window, watching the clouds drift beneath them, his mind still reeling. He had spent so many years detached, focused solely on the mission, on survival. But here, in this moment, he felt something different, a sense of belonging not just to this flight but to something far larger. A sense that, perhaps, there was still hope for the world. From across the aisle, A middle-aged man wearing glasses and a business suit leaned over and cleared his throat. I couldn't help but notice what just happened. What you did? Well, it's rare these days. People aren't usually so selfless anymore. The soldier, still in shock, nodded politely. Yeah, it was unexpected. The man smiled warmly. It wasn't just unexpected, my friend. It was inspiring. It makes me think about how much more we can all do for one another. The soldier raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean? The man leaned back in his seat, his voice taking on a reflective tone. Well, it's easy to get caught up in our own lives, you know? Work, family, our own problems. But something like this reminds us that there's always a chance to do better, to be better. Kindness doesn't just change the person on the receiving end, it changes the people who witness it too. The soldier felt a warmth spread through him at the man's words. He had spent so many years surrounded by soldiers, by people who understood sacrifice but rarely spoke of it in such personal terms. He was beginning to understand that Musk's simple gesture wasn't just an act of charity, it was a reminder of the power of human connection, of the impact one person could have on another. Across the cabin, a woman, who had been quietly watching the interaction, leaned forward with a thoughtful expression. You know, she said, I've been thinking about this for a while now. It's funny how something so small can cause such a ripple. This entire flight, this entire space, feels different because of what happened. It's like the energy shifted. The soldier looked at her, unsure of how to respond. But before he could say anything, the man in the business suit continued, now addressing the entire cabin. It's true. It's about more than just a seat. We're all living our lives, going through our routines, but we often forget how little gestures, small acts of kindness, can change the trajectory of someone's day or even their life. Look at us. Everyone's talking, thinking, reflecting. We've all been touched by this moment in different ways. A silence settled over the cabin as everyone absorbed the weight of his words. The soldier glanced around at the other passengers. A few were nodding in agreement, others were lost in thought, and a few had even started to quietly converse with one another. For the first time in what felt like years, there was a palpable sense of unity in the air. It wasn't about wealth, status, or military service, it was about something more fundamental: empathy. One passenger, a young woman sitting a few rows behind, spoke up with an air of determination. I don't know about you all, but I've been struggling lately. Life's been tough, work's been stressful, and I've been disconnected from my family. But seeing something like this, it makes me want to be better. I want to reach out more, treat others with more kindness. I think we all could. The soldier's heart swelled as he listened to her words. The ripple effect had begun, and it was spreading faster than anyone could have anticipated. It was a small moment, a gesture so simple yet profound, but it had touched everyone on the plane in some way. People began to talk more openly, sharing stories of their own acts of kindness or recounting times when someone's small gesture had made a world of difference in their lives. In a matter of minutes, the flight had become a microcosm of Musk's larger impact on the world, a place where individuals from all walks of life had come together in an unexpected moment of human connection. The soldier thought back to the conversation he'd had with the man earlier. Kindness doesn't just change the person on the receiving end, it changes the people who witness it too. He realized that this was Musk's true legacy, not just the technological innovations, but the way he inspired others to step outside of themselves, to consider the bigger picture, and to act with compassion. As the flight neared its destination, the soldier took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. He turned toward Musk, who was still sitting calmly in his seat, looking out the window. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and in that fleeting exchange the soldier knew, this was only the beginning. As the flight began its descent into its destination, the mood in the cabin was no longer one of mere polite conversation. It had transformed into something more profound. The soldier, now sitting comfortably in Musk's first-class seat, continued to reflect on the kindness he had received. But just as the initial emotions began to settle, the atmosphere was jolted once more, this time by an unexpected twist of fate. The soldier had never expected such a small gesture to have such a lasting impact on him. But as the plane began to prepare for landing, a stewardess approached him, a worried expression on her face. "Excuse me, sir, there's someone here to speak with you," she said quietly, her voice strained. The soldier's brow furrowed in confusion. He wasn't expecting anyone, especially not on the flight. When he stood and walked toward the front of the cabin, he was met with a man in his mid-40s, wearing a smart suit and carrying a briefcase. There was something familiar about him, though the soldier couldn't quite place it. "Hello, soldier," the man said, with a handshake that seemed oddly formal for such a casual situation. "You don't remember me, do you?" The soldier shook his head, trying to recall any memory that matched the man's face. But it wasn't until the man spoke again that everything clicked into place. "I was stationed in the same base you were, about 5 years ago," the man continued. "I was there in the supply division when you and your unit made a crucial run into enemy territory. I'm the one you helped when our convoy was ambushed. You don't remember, but you saved my life that day." The soldier's eyes widened in disbelief. The memory rushed back to him in an instant. A chaotic firefight. A young man, this man, huddled behind a vehicle, badly wounded. The soldier had done what he could to pull him to safety under fire. He hadn't thought much about it afterward, it was just part of the job after all. But now, standing in front of him was someone whose life he had unknowingly saved. But the story didn't end there. The man's eyes softened. "I've been watching your career, and I know about your family's struggles, how they've been struggling to make ends meet while you've been overseas. After all these years, I finally found a way to repay you. And now, I think this moment, this act of kindness, is a sign." He paused, his eyes glinting with purpose. "I work with a few people in Tesla's research division. We've been looking for someone with your skills and background. We need someone who can manage some of our most critical logistics projects. Someone who understands both strategy and sacrifice. I'd like to offer you a position. Not just in any division but in one of our most high-profile initiatives. A position that could change your life, and your family's, forever." The soldier stood frozen, the words sinking in slowly. The twist of fate that had brought him to this moment. First, the unexpected kindness of Musk, and now, a life-changing offer that seemed to fall from the sky. His mind was racing. This wasn't just about a seat on a plane anymore, it was about the future. Musk, who had overheard the conversation from his seat, watched with a quiet smile. His gesture had set into motion a chain of events neither he nor the soldier could have foreseen. Musk didn't just change a man's day, he had changed the course of his future, and perhaps the future of something much larger than either of them could comprehend. As the soldier shook hands with the man from Tesla, the reality of what had just transpired began to dawn on him. But the questions kept building in his mind. What would this new opportunity mean for his family? For his future? And how would this chance encounter with Musk ripple across the coming years? As the plane touched down and the passengers began to disembark, the soldier exchanged a final glance with Musk, who gave him a nod of encouragement. The wheels of destiny were in motion, and neither man could have guessed where they would lead. But one thing was certain. Their lives had already changed in ways neither could have predicted. As the plane touched down, the soldier found himself staring out of the window, his thoughts racing. The events of the past few hours had shifted something deep within him. What had started as an ordinary flight had transformed into a journey that would leave an indelible mark on his life. His mind kept returning to the moment when Elon Musk had offered him his first-class seat. A simple gesture, yet one that set into motion a series of events he could never have predicted. The soldier turned to Musk, who was sitting across from him, still quiet as though reflecting on the same moment. Their eyes met, and the soldier, feeling a rush of gratitude, said, "Thank you, Elon. For everything." Musk smiled warmly, a hint of humility in his expression. "You're welcome." But, in truth, it was nothing. A small act of kindness, something anyone could have done. He paused, his eyes glinting with something more than just politeness. "But what I did for you today, it's just the beginning." The soldier blinked, unsure of what Musk meant. "What do you mean?" Musk's voice lowered, his gaze turning thoughtful. "What I've learned in my life is that moments like these, small, seemingly insignificant moments, can have the power to change everything. Your story, your sacrifice, and now our shared experience is part of something bigger. I'm glad our paths crossed, but I believe this encounter will lead to much more. For you, for me, and maybe even for the world." The soldier, still processing the magnitude of what had unfolded, nodded slowly. He now saw the world in a different light. His service, his sacrifices, his journey, it all felt different now. The kindness he had received had planted a seed in him, one that he couldn't ignore. Musk had given him more than just a seat on a plane. He had given him a chance to see life's possibilities with a renewed sense of purpose. As the soldier prepared to exit the plane, Musk stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. "Don't forget," Musk said, "life is full of unexpected twists. The little things we do for others, they can ripple out into the world, creating changes that we may never see but will always feel." The soldier smiled, his heart filled with gratitude. "I won't forget. And I'll make sure I pay it forward." With a final wave, the soldier stepped off the plane, ready to face the next chapter of his life. His heart was lighter, his resolve firmer. He had not only been given a second chance but a new outlook on life, one where kindness, even in the smallest gestures, had the power to transform lives. As Musk watched him walk away, he reflected on the powerful truth of what had transpired. He had been right all along. Small acts of kindness can change the course of history. One gesture, one moment, one choice can echo across time, rippling out and shaping the world in ways that no one can fully comprehend. And just as the soldier returned to his post with a renewed sense of purpose, Musk made a vow to continue living with the same open-hearted approach. The world needed more of it, the kind of kindness that doesn't expect anything in return but simply changes lives for the better. In the end, it wasn't about the seat. It was about the ripple effect of a single act of kindness. And the soldier would never forget how one small moment had changed everything.